Heavy rain poured across the area as Count Fo desperately tried to escape. After a long search, several knights finally managed to track him down. They immediately moved to capture him and ordered everyone to block his path. Fouad gritted his teeth and continued running while cursing the royalist faction. He realized that the situation had spiraled out of control far earlier than expected. In a panic, Fouad broke through a door and rushed into another room. However, Rosalind Branford was already waiting there with a large group of knights surrounding the area. Rosalind calmly declared that the pointless game of hide-and-seek had finally come to an end. She revealed that most of the spies connected to the ducal family had already been arrested and confirmed that everything was over for Count Fouad. Despite the situation, Fouad only smirked and insisted that it was far from over. Suddenly, he loudly called out to the priest and revealed that he had successfully brought the daughter of Marquis Branford, just as instructed. Begging desperately for mercy, Fouad pleaded for the priest to save him. The knights were left completely shocked after hearing those words. Many of them believed that Fouad had finally lost his sanity and immediately prepared to arrest him. At that moment, a thick fog suddenly filled the entire area. Realizing something dangerous was happening, Rosalind quickly ordered the knights to stay focused. Meanwhile, tears of joy rolled down Fouad's face after sensing the priest's arrival. Overwhelmed with happiness, he cried out in relief and begged the priest to kill everyone present and grant him salvation. Just as Fouad celebrated the priest's arrival, the situation suddenly took a horrifying turn. Without hesitation, the priest drove a sword straight through Fouad's chest. Rosalind Branford and the surrounding knights were left completely stunned by the unexpected betrayal. Confused and desperate, Fouad questioned why the priest had done such a thing to him. The priest coldly explained that Fouad's careless tongue had become a problem. As punishment for that recklessness, he declared that Fouad would become a holy knight and spend the rest of his existence atoning for his sins. Moments later, Fouad's body began transforming into a terrifying demon-like creature. The horrifying sight filled Rosalind Branford with fear. Meanwhile, the priest calmly turned his attention toward Rosalind. He acknowledged the daughter of Marquis Branford as someone talented in both intellect and swordsmanship. Even so, he admitted that he disliked handling matters in such a forceful way. Despite that, he declared that Rosalind would have no choice but to accompany him for a while. As the scene shifted elsewhere, concern continued spreading throughout the kingdom. Inside the palace, a knight asked the king if he was worried about Branford's daughter. The king immediately understood the topic was Rosalind Branford. The knight reported that 2 entire days had already passed since Lady Rosalind disappeared. Yet not a single trace of her whereabouts had been discovered. The king remained calm and stated that since the incident happened within the kingdom itself, the culprits would eventually be found, unless they were literal ghosts. He further explained that Rosalind was the daughter of Marquis Branford, and if the ducal family truly kidnapped someone of her status, they would naturally erase every possible trace behind them. Even so, the king revealed that he had already prepared himself for problems like this, ever since the civil war began. Afterward, the king wondered where Ghislan currently was. At that moment, the scene shifted toward the palace entrance. As Ghislan finally arrived, the knights respectfully opened the doors for him as he headed straight inside. Ghislan entered the dining area and immediately asked Dark about the situation. Dark carefully examined the surroundings and admitted that the entire area had been cleaned almost perfectly. He explained that whoever kidnapped the Marquis's daughter was extremely skilled, making it natural that ordinary humans failed to discover any clues. However, Dark confidently declared that such tricks could never deceive his eyes. Activating his special power, Dark carefully searched the entire area. During the investigation, he noticed countless signs of destruction and realized that a brutal battle had taken place there. Soon after, Ghislan discovered a letter left behind at the scene. The message stated that if he wanted answers about his mysterious power, he needed to follow the direction pointed out by the black energy. The warning also made it clear that Rosalind would die if he failed to come alone. Ghislan quietly focused on the phrase mentioning the black energy. Suddenly, Dark excitedly announced that he had found the trail. He believed the enemy likely assumed nobody would ever locate them so easily. According to him, revealing the location through such traces was a major mistake. However, Ghislan immediately realized the truth behind the situation. He calmly explained that the entire thing was a trap. Dark was shocked by the conclusion. Ghislan then revealed that the enemy must know something about his mysterious power. That was why the clues had been intentionally left, in a form that only someone with his abilities could discover. To Ghislan, it almost felt as if the enemy deliberately wanted him to find them. As the situation continued growing darker, Rosalind slowly regained consciousness. The moment she opened her eyes, terror filled her face after seeing the lifeless bodies of all the knights scattered around her. The horrifying sight left her completely shaken. Standing nearby, the priest calmly asked whether his actions had startled her. Panicking, Rosalind demanded to know who he truly was, and questioned what he had done to all those people. The priest answered without emotion, and explained that the dead knights were merely sacrifices. According to him, those sacrifices were necessary to open a completely new world. He coldly described their lives as nothing more than resources needed to create that path. Rosalind was left speechless after suddenly noticing something impossible in front of her. A massive rift had appeared in mid-air itself. The priest then revealed that once the rift fully opened, the true masters of the world would finally return to reclaim the land. Hearing those insane words, Rosalind angrily screamed and called him a complete lunatic. However, the priest remained calm and told her there was no reason to rush because she would soon understand everything herself. He then casually mentioned that Count Ghislan Fenris would probably arrive soon to witness everything alongside them. The priest admitted that he had personally invited him there. Rosalind was shocked after hearing Ghislan's name connected to the situation. She immediately insisted that Ghislan was not foolish enough to fall for such an obvious trap. Despite her confidence, the priest calmly declared that Ghislan would definitely come. According to him, Ghislan simply had no other choice. Meanwhile, as the danger surrounding the kingdom continued increasing, Ghislan was already moving directly toward their location with unwavering determination. The scene shifted to Fenris, where Alfoy and his friends were enjoying a peaceful meal and drinks together after a long battle. One of his companions celebrated the rare chance to rest and remarked that the knights were probably still running all over the capital. He believed those knights were far from ordinary and that taking a short break would not hurt them. He even admitted that perhaps he should have accompanied Lord Fenris instead. Alfoy explained that Lord Fenris had ordered him to rest because he had already fought against the Crimson forces. However, ever since that battle, he had been left with an empty feeling inside. Nothing seemed exciting anymore, and everything felt meaningless. He believed that defeating a god had left him with this strange emptiness. At that moment, an unfamiliar man approached and revealed that he understood that feeling better than anyone. Alfoy immediately became alert and asked for the stranger's identity. The man introduced himself as Tennant, the West's greatest sword. He had come for only one reason, to challenge Alfoy, the man who had defeated a god. At the same time, back inside the castle, someone rushed toward Lucas with an urgent message and insisted that he come outside immediately. Lucas remained calm and pointed out that there were many capable people inside the castle besides him. The messenger quickly revealed that the visitor was Roderick's master, the West's greatest sword. Hearing that name instantly shocked Lucas, and he stood up without wasting another moment. Soon afterward, everyone gathered at the arena where Alfoy and Tennant stood face to face. The surrounding knights erupted with excitement as they witnessed the legendary hero who had defeated a god standing against the West's greatest sword. They cheered loudly, eager to witness the battle, and finally see Alfoy fight again after his recent boredom. Tennant revealed that he had heard countless stories while traveling north. The rumors claimed that Alfoy had slain Delmid and destroyed the Crimson Magic Tower through his own strength. Alfoy felt completely confused because he remembered losing consciousness before everything had ended. By the time he woke up, Lord Fenris had already finished the battle himself. Tennant believed that warriors with such overwhelming power could never find satisfaction in ordinary life. Although he had originally come to meet Lord Fenris, he wanted Alfoy to entertain him first. Before the duel could begin, Lucas stepped in and stopped Tennant from challenging the wrong person. Tennant turned his attention toward Lucas and wondered who he was. Lucas casually introduced himself as the one responsible for managing all these troublesome people. He then asked why the West's greatest sword had traveled all the way to the north. Tennant finally revealed his true purpose. As a knight, he had come to formally challenge Count Ghislan Fenris to a duel. Everyone nearby was left completely stunned after hearing that the West's greatest sword wanted to fight their lord. Lucas quietly suspected that the challenge might have something to do with the young master Roderick. Tennant apologized for creating unnecessary trouble. Since Count Fenris was absent, he had only been trying to pass the time while waiting. Lucas then learned that Lord Fenris had traveled to the capital on important business. Hearing that, Tennant looked relieved because it meant the man he had come to challenge had not avoided him. Lucas remarked that someone carrying the title of the West's greatest sword seemed surprisingly free if he could wander around searching for battles instead of protecting his own territory. Lucas then drew the challenge toward himself and declared that he would fight in Lord Fenris's place. Tennant appeared surprised that Lucas wanted to face him instead. Lucas explained that allowing the West's greatest sword to leave without a fight would only earn him Lord Fenris's anger later. Tennant burst into laughter before finally drawing his own sword. With a confident smirk, he accepted Lucas's challenge and prepared to see what he was truly capable of. As tension continued to rise in Fenris, the story shifted to another location, where Ghislan entered the mysterious world created by the priest. The priest welcomed Count Ghislan Fenris with a warm smile and thanked him for accepting the invitation. Nearby, Rosalind was left completely shocked after seeing Ghislan appear before her. Ghislan immediately rushed toward Rosalind to rescue her, but before he could reach her, the priest drew his sword and blocked his path. Ghislan immediately drew his sword, and both warriors charged at each other without a moment of hesitation. Their blades collided with tremendous force, sending powerful shockwaves through the battlefield before both of them stepped back to reassess the situation. As Ghislan prepared for another exchange, he suddenly realized that he could no longer use his mana inside this strange world. The priest noticed his reaction and smugly explained that there was nothing unusual about it. No one was capable of using mana within this place. He then pulled out a mysterious bell, rang it, and summoned his so-called holy warriors. Moments later, countless dark spirits emerged from every direction, surrounding Ghislan from all sides. Ghislan was visibly shocked by the terrifying sight. Rosalind quickly revealed that one of those spirits was Count Food, the ducal family's diplomat. She explained that the priest had infused them with black energy, transforming them into those horrific creatures. Even the kingdom's army had suffered the same fate and had been turned into mindless puppets. At the same time, one of the spirits grabbed Rosalind and held a sword against her throat, making the situation even more dangerous. Ghislan coldly pointed out the irony of calling those monsters holy warriors. The priest reminded him that he had already witnessed this same power before through Desmond. He calmly urged Ghislan to face them and demonstrate the true extent of his strength. Without wasting another second, all three spirits launched a coordinated attack on Ghislan. Despite being unable to use mana, Ghislan blocked every strike with flawless swordsmanship before immediately launching his own counterattack. His blades sliced through their bodies with incredible precision, severing their limbs one after another. Before he could catch his breath, a gigantic monster charged directly toward him with overwhelming force. Ghislan narrowly dodged the attack at the last second. Using the monster's momentum against it, he leaped onto its massive body, rushed toward its neck, and delivered a decisive slash that cleanly severed its enormous head. Watching his powerful creation fall so easily, the priest's expression immediately turned cold with visible frustration, while Rosalind was filled with relief and hope. Ghislan realized that ordinary logic no longer applied in this place. They were surrounded by monsters, while being completely unable to use mana. He demanded to know what kind of trick the priest had used. The priest calmly revealed that the nearby rift was absorbing every bit of mana in the surrounding area. Ghislan immediately shifted his attention toward the mysterious rift. The priest explained that opening something like that required an unimaginable amount of mana. Simply luring someone with monstrous mana like Ghislan into this place had already fulfilled his objective. Ghislan instantly realized that the rift had been absorbing his mana the entire time without him noticing. He then noticed that the rift had already grown much larger than before, and immediately understood that if it fully opened, the consequences would be catastrophic. At that very moment, an enormous skeletal monster with multiple heads slowly emerged from the expanding rift, releasing an overwhelming aura across the battlefield. The horrifying creature immediately confirmed Ghislan's suspicions. He finally understood how everything had happened. Those beings were the ones responsible for beginning the Age of Calamity. They were also the hidden force that had supported the ducal house in its attempt to destroy Ferdium. Ghislan fixed the priest with a murderous glare as he finally uncovered the truth behind the entire conspiracy. The true force responsible for everything was Demu, the Salvation Church. Lucas launched a swift attack with his weapon, hoping to overwhelm Tennant with his speed. However, Tennant calmly intercepted the strike with his sword, effortlessly stopping the attack. Before Lucas could react, Tennant shifted his blade and held its tip directly against Lucas's throat, leaving him completely stunned. Tennant admitted that Lucas possessed impressive speed, but his swordsmanship was still crude, rough, and lacking refinement. After carefully observing Lucas's fighting style for a few moments, Tennant concluded that he had seen everything he needed to judge his skill. Without showing any hesitation, Tennant suddenly drove his sword toward Lucas's throat, as if he intended to finish him on the spot. The unexpected move left Alfoy and the other knights frozen in shock, while Lucas himself believed his life was about to end. Just before the blade could pierce his neck, Tennant stopped at the last possible moment. The sword remained inches from Lucas's throat, making it clear that Tennant had deliberately spared him. Realizing he was still alive, Lucas was left completely speechless and unable to understand why he had been shown mercy. Tennant then explained that Lucas did not wield the sword of a true knight. His technique revealed the instincts of someone who had learned to survive countless battles, rather than someone who had been trained with proper knightly discipline. After making that observation, Tennant recalled that Lucas had previously mentioned Count Fenris being in the capital, and his attention immediately shifted to that important detail. Lucas calmly confirmed that Count Fenris was indeed in the capital. That answer only made Tennant even more interested. Seeing the level of skill Lucas possessed, Tennant found himself increasingly curious about the man who had earned such unwavering loyalty. The idea that someone like Ghislan commanded a swordsman of Lucas's caliber convinced Tennant that Count Fenris was far from an ordinary noble. As Tennant's curiosity lingered, the story smoothly shifted to another battlefield, where Ghislan stood face to face with the mysterious priest. Ghislan fixed the priest with a cold, intimidating glare, before revealing that he already knew the truth. He identified them as the ones responsible for the Age of Calamity, and exposed their role in assisting the ducal house during the attempt to destroy Ferdium. After connecting all the pieces together, Ghislan confirmed that the organization behind everything was none other than the Salvation Church. Rosalind was left completely stunned after hearing the name of the secret organization. However, the priest was equally shocked by Ghislan's knowledge. Even the kingdom's intelligence organization had never discovered the existence of the Salvation Church. Yet Ghislan not only knew about it, but even recognized its name. The priest couldn't understand where Ghislan had learned such closely guarded information. Ghislan immediately realized that the priest had made no attempt to deny the accusation, which was all the confirmation he needed. He then recalled the priest's earlier statement that simply luring him there had already accomplished their objective. But in Ghislan's eyes, the priest had made a fatal mistake. By exposing the Salvation Church's connection with Duke Delphine, they had unknowingly confirmed the truth Ghislan had been searching for all along. Without wasting another second, Ghislan charged straight at the priest and launched a fierce attack. The priest barely avoided the opening strike, but Ghislan gave him no time to recover. He continued pressing forward with one relentless attack after another, forcing the priest to constantly block and dodge while remaining completely on the defensive. As the clash intensified, the priest suddenly reached for an obsolete weapon hidden on his body. Without hesitation, he fired a shot at Ghislan. Although Ghislan reacted in time and avoided a direct hit, the bullet ripped through his cloak, proving that the weapon was still deadly despite its age. The sight of the strange weapon only made Ghislan even angrier. His expression turned cold as he unleashed a powerful slash with enough force to cut down his opponent in a single blow. However, the priest quickly retreated and narrowly escaped the devastating strike. Ghislan immediately recognized the weapon as an obsolete firearm, even though it had long disappeared from the battlefield. He admitted that choosing such a weapon was an unexpectedly refined decision. The priest calmly reloaded the firearm while wearing a confident smirk, showing no sign of panic despite Ghislan's overwhelming pressure. He explained that it was a portable firearm powered by gunpowder, capable of firing bullets without relying on mana. Since magic had replaced such weapons long ago, they had faded into history. However, in a place where mana could not be used, this forgotten weapon became incredibly effective. As soon as the weapon was reloaded, the priest fired another shot toward Ghislan. Ghislan effortlessly dodged the incoming bullet and instantly closed the distance with an incredibly fast slash. Even so, the priest reacted just in time and slipped away from the attack before the blade could reach him. Refusing to let his opponent escape, Ghislan launched an endless barrage of strikes. His sword came crashing down from above, swept upward from below, and cut across from both sides in rapid succession. Every attack flowed seamlessly into the next, leaving almost no opening between them. Despite the overwhelming speed and relentless pressure, the priest continued evading each strike with precise footwork and perfect timing, managing to survive Ghislan's relentless offensive without suffering a single hit. The priest quickly raised his obsolete firearm once again and fired another shot at Ghislan, hoping to catch him off guard. However, Ghislan reacted instantly, effortlessly dodging the incoming bullet before closing the distance. In the blink of an eye, he unleashed a powerful strike aimed directly at the priest's head. As the priest instinctively raised his hand to defend himself, Ghislain's sword pierced straight through his hand, forcing him to release his weapon. The slash also carved a deep cut across the priest's cheek, leaving blood running down his face. For the first time since the battle began, genuine fear appeared in the priest's eyes. At that moment, he finally realized that Ghislan had been using the stalactites surrounding them as part of his strategy, carefully controlling the battlefield from the very beginning. After the brutal exchange, both fighters stepped back and created some distance. The priest immediately understood that defeating Ghislan through a normal duel was impossible. Realizing he could not stop him with conventional methods, he abandoned his original plan. Although he had wanted to settle the fight honorably, he reluctantly chose to rely on another method and summoned the holy warriors. Without showing the slightest hesitation or fear of death, the holy warriors charged directly toward Ghislan. The priest confidently ordered them to fulfill the duty for which they had been created. Obeying his command without question, the warriors surrounded Ghislan and launched a relentless assault. Their attacks shook the entire battlefield, destroying everything in their path and filling the area with dust, debris, and smoke. Watching the devastating explosion unfold, Rosalind's heart sank as she feared the worst for Ghislan. From her perspective, surviving such an overwhelming assault seemed impossible. However, as the thick cloud of smoke gradually disappeared, a lone figure slowly emerged from the destruction. Ghislan stepped forward completely unharmed, without a single visible injury, proving that the holy warriors had failed to stop him. Looking at the priest with complete disgust, Ghislan exposed the truth behind the so-called holy warriors. He revealed that they were nothing more than human beings used as experimental subjects, making the title of holy warriors nothing but a lie. The moment the priest sensed the immense aura radiating from Ghislan, his confidence completely disappeared. He was overwhelmed with shock, because using mana inside this place should have been impossible. Yet Ghislan stood before him overflowing with power, as though the restriction meant nothing. Ghislan calmly revealed the secret behind it. Instead of resisting the dimensional rift, he was simply releasing mana faster than the rift could absorb it, allowing him to maintain his strength despite the environment. The priest let out a cold laugh and warned that such a method would only accelerate the growth of the dimensional rift. The more mana Ghislan released, the faster the rift would expand, eventually consuming everything around them. Ghislan already understood that risk better than anyone else. Even so, he remained completely unfazed, deciding that the battle would end long before the rift could become a real problem. Without giving the priest another chance to think, Ghislan suddenly burst forward with explosive speed. The priest desperately reached for his obsolete firearm and attempted to fire one final shot. Before he could pull the trigger, Ghislan violently knocked him off balance. In the same motion, Ghislan seized the firearm and drove it deep into the priest's abdomen with overwhelming force. Blood instantly poured from the priest's mouth as the devastating blow left him critically wounded. As unbearable pain spread through his body, the priest's thoughts drifted back to the intelligence reports provided by the ducal house regarding Count Ghislan. Until now, he had believed those reports were accurate, but standing before the real Ghislan made him realize they had completely underestimated his true strength. Ghislan's power was not merely on the same level as theirs. It had already reached a level frighteningly close to the strength possessed by the Salvation Church itself. Even after landing the decisive blow, Ghislan never took his eyes off the priest. He continued staring at him with an icy, murderous glare that made it painfully clear the battle had already been decided, and the priest had no chance of escaping his fate. The priest crashed to the ground as the overwhelming power of Ghislan left him stunned. Everything he had heard in the ducal house's reports suddenly felt like a massive understatement. Ghislan's strength was not merely on the same level as the reports suggested. It was far beyond them. Ghislan immediately demanded to know whether the priest had created all of the rifts. The priest coughed up blood and admitted that ordinary humans like them could never create such a miracle. Without wasting another moment, Ghislan drove his sword straight through the priest's chest. The priest screamed in agony as blood poured from his mouth. Ghislan remained completely unfazed. He admitted that he had never expected the priest to reveal the truth so easily. He reminded him that he had been told to come here if he wanted answers about his mysterious power. Still laughing despite his fatal wound, the priest confirmed that he had indeed said those words. Ghislan fixed him with a cold death glare as the priest finally revealed the truth. The strange power Ghislan possessed was similar to the power used by the Salvation Church. It was far closer to divine power than ordinary mana. The revelation left Ghislan completely shocked. The priest then declared that there was no point asking him anything else, because he was merely someone destined to open the door. His true purpose was to prepare the way for the true master of this world, and the true king. With his final breath, the priest screamed and poured every last bit of his power into the rift before dying. Watching this, Ghislan clenched his teeth in rage and cursed the priest. The rift immediately became overwhelmed by the enormous surge of energy. The priest's body was completely destroyed, and moments later, the rift finally opened. Seeing the portal fully open before him, Ghislan gritted his teeth as he prepared for whatever was waiting on the other side. The rift suddenly began pulling everything around it inside. Even Rosalind was dragged toward the portal as she cried out in fear. Ghislan immediately used his mana to seize her and pulled her back to safety. As he moved toward the rift himself, he urged Rosalind to escape first. He assured her that he would close the rift. Rosalind desperately shouted his name as she watched him. Without hesitation, Ghislan stepped into the overwhelming rift. The terrifying miasma inside instantly caught his attention. However, he realized that the interior of the rift was filled with mana, meaning he would have no problem using his own mana there. His spirit servant was horrified by the decision and questioned why he had entered the rift. Ghislan calmly explained that once the rift had fully opened, it could no longer be closed from the outside. The only way to stop it from expanding was to deal with it from within. At that moment, another demon appeared before him. The sight of the monster immediately caught Ghislan's attention, as he recognized it as the harbinger of the end, Equidema. The demon launched an instant attack, sending Ghislan flying backward before he crashed onto the ground. Without giving him a chance to recover, Equidema rushed in with another strike. Ghislan's spirit servant quickly warned him to move. Ghislan dodged at the last second, and the demon's attack slammed into the ground instead. Equidema continued attacking without pause, refusing to give Ghislan any opening. Ghislan narrowly avoided another massive sword strike, as the demon's blade carved straight through the ground with terrifying force. Breathing heavily, Ghislan realized just how terrifying his opponent truly was. Equidema possessed overwhelming raw strength that needed no further explanation. His spirit servant panicked after seeing Ghislan being forced back. It warned that even with Ghislan's immense power, he was losing the battle. The spirit urged him to retreat immediately, because the rift had already drained a large amount of his mana, and he had exhausted even more power while fighting the White Priest. Ghislan clenched his teeth and refused to back down. He knew that if Equidema escaped into the outside world, the rift would expand beyond control. Every place the demon stepped would become a land where no one could survive. At that moment, Equidema charged toward him once again. Ghislan unleashed a powerful roar and swore that this time he would never allow such a disaster to happen again. Gathering every ounce of his remaining strength, Ghislan swung his sword with full power. However, his blade collided head-on with Equidema's weapon and shattered into pieces. Although shocked, Ghislan refused to stop. He let out another scream and continued charging straight toward the demon without hesitation. To Ghislan's surprise, Aiden, Jillian, and Wendy suddenly appeared beside him and launched a combined attack against Equidema. Completely stunned by their arrival, Ghislan looked at his companions in disbelief. Gillian apologized for arriving late. Aiden casually remarked that Ghislan had been enjoying all the fighting by himself. Ghislan immediately asked about Miss Rosalind. Wendy assured him that Belinda was protecting her. Hearing that, Ghislan smiled with relief, knowing Rosalind was safe. Aiden remarked that the situation reminded him of the time they fought together in the Forest of Beasts. Gillian recalled that their opponent back then had been the Blood Python. Ghislan ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Without hesitation, everyone took their positions and acknowledged his command. The demon let out a furious roar and charged at them. The four warriors attacked together without giving it a moment to react. They repeatedly drove their swords into the demon's body from every direction, covering the battlefield in blood. As the relentless assault continued, Ghislan stood atop the demon's body. He adjusted his stance, raised his sword, and activated his fourth core. Determined to end the battle for good, he declared that they would never meet again. With all of his strength, Ghislan charged straight toward the demon for the final strike. As the battle reached its climax, the scene shifted to another mysterious figure who had been watching everything unfold. After witnessing Ghislan's actions, the observer concluded that Ghislan had truly chosen to betray his faith. Realizing there was no longer any alternative, the mysterious figure decided that it was finally time to intervene personally.